So, a bit of a surprise with the results, Mr. Farley, and unfortunately not a nice one. I'm afraid there were some cancerous cells in the biopsy. The words that can never be unsaid. I'm afraid. The date, 17th of September 2020, will always be remembered. So much to look forward to. Years of new adventures with my fantastic family, a new business about to launch, and a grand new greenhouse to build. But essentially I've been handed a death sentence. These are all the things that went through my mind when I heard these words. I'm afraid it's not good news. So a bit melodramatic maybe, but these are all the things that were actually going through my mind when I heard those words. A bit of a different video this week. I thought after the last 6 months, or was it maybe even 8 months now, the last 8 months I've gone through, I'd do a bit of an update on my journey through basically throat cancer. Bit of a shock when you find out, and I'm going to talk through that. And what I thought I'd do is I'd just talk through my journey through throat cancer and the operation and everything else that went after. Because when I actually found out I had throat cancer, I looked on the internet and you know, on YouTube, etc., and I didn't really find many what I would call personal stories of, you know, the people that actually went through it and what their feelings were, etc. You know, it was more like the clinical. And this is what happens. You have an operation and you feel like this type thing. So I thought I'd, you know, go through that journey. So I'm here in the greenhouse. Welcome to Nova Scotia. Welcome to my channel if you've not been here before. The Optimistic Gardener. The Optimistic Gardener is actually a good title, I feel, for this journey as well, because gardening has helped me immensely through all the different ups and downs of the last 8 months. And you know, if I didn't have the garden and thinking about all the things I do in the garden in that period, then maybe it wouldn't have been as the journey that I had, and maybe different results. I don't know. Maybe that's a bit melodramatic, but you know, this is how I really feel the garden has helped in my journey. So when did the journey begin? So it started last July. I don't know whether it was one day or whatever. I sort of felt in my throat and there was a big lump suddenly came up, and I was like, oh, what's going on there? You know, but like a bloke, us stupid blokes normally are, after a couple, you know, for a couple of weeks, I'm like, yeah, it'll go away. I'm sure some infection, it'll go down in a couple of weeks. But 2 weeks went by and it didn't go down. I don't know if it actually got bigger, but it definitely didn't go down. So I thought, I better go and see the doc. So I made an appointment with my local doctor, saw him, and he immediately, I don't know whether he tried to reassure me, but he said, I think it should be okay, but we'll make an appointment with the specialist throat man anyway. So I get to see the specialist in sort of mid-August, over to Dartmouth to see him, and you know, he has a look, Dr. Smith, and he says, again, I don't think it's anything too serious, but we'll take a biopsy anyway. And he gets his great big needle out, you know, massive great big thing, it's what it feels like, and he takes 3 shots, bits of stuff out of my throat. Felt like he was tearing me apart, but that's the way it was. So next thing, it's September the 17th, and that is the scene I just described. You know, I'm afraid, Mr. Farley, it's not good news. Oh, that's a bit of a shock. You know, you look in there and you're thinking, I'm sure he didn't. Did he just say cancerous? I've got cancer? You're joking. You know, all of those things going through your mind. Walk out in a bit of a daze. You know, he says to me, the surgeon that we've got here is, you know, if you could be in anyone's hands, his hands, you know, are the best in the business. Maybe that's a bit reassuring. Get outside, phone up Mrs. F. She doesn't particularly deal with new things particularly well, and yeah, so she's in shock. But a week later, I go to see the surgeon himself at the hospital in Halifax, and he's very confident. 90% plus success rate with throat cancer, and getting through it, etc. He tells me that he's basically just gonna. He thinks he knows where it is, probably in the tonsil or the back of the throat. They'll go in, chop a load of stuff out. Depending exactly on what he sort of sees there, there's a 70-odd% chance that I may need radiation. So, okay, fair enough. This is all reassured Mrs. F as well, and then there's that whole dynamic, isn't it? It's not just about you, it's about how it's affecting the other people in your family, your friends, etc. And you have to worry about that. Even though you want to be worrying about yourself, you end up worrying about how everybody else is sort of feeling as well. But this has been really good for Mrs. F. She's got a list to get in her teeth in. I need to do this. It needs to be doing this, 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 and this. She's got someone she can hassle, and Mrs. F's like a dog with a bone when she's got a list to sort out. So that's made her, funnily, happier. She's got something to get her teeth into, like I said. All going through my mind again, operations. I've never been in a hospital for anything more than stitches or whatever. I've never broken any bones or anything like that. So, blimey, this is a bit of a shock. Full-on operation. So the operation's going to be on the 14th of October. And that sort of date comes round. We've decided we're not going to tell my boy that I've got cancer. 11 years old. Don't think he needs that sort of pressure on him at the moment. It's not as if he can do anything about it. So, Dad's going in for an operation on his throat. 14th comes round, early in the morning, go to the hospital, haven't eaten for however the night before type thing. Go in, operation nice and early. I'm on the table, next thing I know, I'm not on the table, I'm in the bed. I believe I speak to the doctor, and apparently it all went well. He removed one of my tonsils, a load of stuff out the back of my throat. There's apparently a 4-centimetre tumour in my tonsil, and a 2.5-centimetre tumour in my, and a 2.5-centimetre tumour in my lymph glands, somewhere in there, which is a lump. So, and that was the secondary. So the primary thing was the actual tumour in the tonsil. And funnily enough, again, blokes not thinking about it, yeah, there's nothing there. Maybe a month or so, 6 weeks, maybe even 2 months before I actually, this lump came up. When I was eating peanuts, so I like eating peanuts, every time I started eating peanuts now, I started coughing. I wasn't really thinking anything of it, but Sarah was like, why are you coughing for all the time? What are you coughing for? So she'd already picked it up. So any of you guys watching this in the future, anything like that happens, some sort of constant irritation in your throat, take it seriously. So after the so the doc's taken 2.5 out of my lymph gland, and apparently it's really he's really happy with it. I'm in hospital for the next 4 days, and the next 7 days is probably one of the most painful experiences of my life. As you can see in the photograph, pretty nasty looking scar there, and it was super painful. Really painful in my throat. Obviously the scar was painful, but at the back of my mouth and the throat was it was off the scale painful. The hospital left me with Tylenol and hydromorphine, but they only gave me enough painkillers for the next 3 days. They're really worried about you getting sort of addicted to this hydromorphine stuff, but blimey, I definitely needed the painkillers, and I had to immediately go and get a new lot of painkillers, new prescription. Otherwise, if I'd suddenly run out, would have been hideous. And like I said, the next week was one of the most painful weeks of my life. So I got out on the Sunday, and by the Wednesday I was in absolute bits. Hardly slept more than an hour here than there. And I remember, I think it was Thanksgiving, and my brother in Texas, Ian, he video called me with the family. All the family his family were around his house, and I could barely sort of talk, but emotionally I was all over the place, and literally, I have still don't know why it was. It's obviously because of lack of sleep. I just burst into tears, couldn't stop crying, sobbing all over the place. I had to end the call, sat out on the balcony, just literally shaking with tears, and it was absolutely terrible, horrible. So Mrs. F phones up the local doc, gets me in to see him the next day. Fortunately, he's actually something to do with the chronic and pain clinic at the hospital. So he prescribes me pregbaline, I think, just to help me sleep. And all of a sudden, it's the difference between night and day. I get a couple of nights good sleep, and I feel so much better, so much more quickly. And I get over the emotional sort of feelings that I'm getting, and my throat starts to feel a lot better, a lot quicker. And by sort of the Sunday after that, I stopped taking the hydromorphine, no problems whatsoever. 2 days after that, I actually had my first poo in 10 days. Excuse the graphic, but that's what that hydromorphine does. So there's two reliefs there. So I think a few weeks after that, I go back in to see the surgeon. He's been really happy, but he explains to me that the sort of tumour that was in my lymph gland, if I can imagine an orange, the tumour was just poking out of the orange peel. So he feels that it'd be a much better idea for me to have the radiation therapy as well. So he doesn't explain it to be that bad. Little did I know. But anyway, I've got to go for a regimen of 30 radiation treatments. So then I go to see the oncologist, the radiation doctor, and he goes through all the different, I'm going to have 30 treatments. Some days I may have 2 treatments in a day because the period is probably going to be over Christmas. So where I miss a day because of a holiday, I have to make it up the next day. And these double days, I come to learn a pretty hideous ordeals. So he talks me through everything, and he says to me, if you like food, I'll start eating as much as I can of all the food that I really like, as much as possible before the radiation treatment starts, because he says very quickly I'm going to lose my sense of taste and probably won't get it back for another 6 months. That's a pretty nasty thought to me. The optimistic gardener, one of the big things I love doing is growing veg, and I like growing veg because I love food. I love cooking food, all the different tastes, etc. So losing my sense of taste, that's a big deal to me. But obviously losing my life is more of a bigger deal. So let's go through the radiation treatment. All of a sudden, the date comes through, November the 14th. Radiation treatment starts. So a few days before the treatment starts, I have to go in to get my mask fitted. Now this mask apparently keeps you down on the bed and stops you moving, so that the radiation can be targeted exactly the area that they've determined is needed. So you go in and they put this wet mesh and they mould it over your face, and you have to lie there for about 10-15 minutes, and you can't move at all. It's all right up against you, and as it dries, it starts to harden up and becomes the mask. I remember having this overwhelming feeling of claustrophobia, and just sort of having to talk myself down to not move, etc. And this is the actual mask. So as you can see, it fits over your head, and it's literally right up against your nose. And sometimes, you know, or when they put it on and you're actually having the radiation, it's on that sort of tight that you can't open your eyes. Keep your eyes closed, and then when you try to open them, it's on there so tight that you can't open your eyes. So this, every time you go in, I went in for the radiation, you have to put this, strap this onto you, and you're in there, you're only in there for about 5 to 10 minutes, but sometimes you do get a feeling of claustrophobia. You know, you can put your hand up apparently and they're watching, or you can sort of, you can't talk or anything, but you could hollow out if you wanted to, as they say, and they would come to your aid. But you've just got to be calm, nice and calm, stay nice and breathe in, and just have a 10-minute kip really. And apparently the actual radiation is only in the last few minutes. I don't know what it's doing for the first 10 minutes, but anyway. So every single day you go. I went in normally in the morning, fortunately, and had that 10 minutes in there, straight in, really good. Nurses were fantastic. You know, how you doing, Mr. Farley? How you feeling from the day before, etc., etc. First 12, do you know, didn't really think anything of it. Thought, well, this is a flipping doddle, this. You know, sometimes feeling a bit more tired, feeling a bit sick sometimes, but not really getting me. Then all of a sudden, bang, food suddenly started tasting revolting. Most food anyway. Meat was off, couldn't eat meat, just revolting. And so that was, you know, that was a nightmare. And you know, meal times became a psychological battle for me. To, you know, it was stressful. Food would come in, Sarah would make me something, and I'll tell you something, my wife, as all the way through this, was fantastic. You know, when I was really bad after the operation, you know, she looked after me brilliantly, and you know, and as I steadily got worse through radiation, again looked after me brilliantly. And you know, like I said, meals became a psychological, stressful battle. I'd look at it and think, I just can't eat that. I don't want to eat it. And in the end, I was eating mostly Rice Krispies twice a day, and mashed potato and mashed carrots with some gravy. I just did not want to eat, and you know, suddenly you lose your taste, and what an awful thing. It was a real battle. And the other thing all the way through this that, you know, like I said, helped me, like I said at the start, helped me out, was my garden. And even though, you know, it's through December, etc., just doing stuff in my group, building this greenhouse, doing stuff in my other greenhouse, doing stuff in the garden, just walking around in the garden, helped to take my mind off it, keep me thinking about the positive things, and it's just immensely helpful. You know, any time you get in the garden it naturally de-stresses you anyway. I've spoken about this before, you know, the wonderful healing powers of the garden, and I'm going to, you know, shout it from the rooftop that helped me immensely. So all the way through the period, you know, I try to get out into the garden as much as is possible, and get out and see something non-man-made. So steadily feeling sick, not always feeling sick, but worse after these double days. So because my treatment was going over Christmas time, there was a few holidays in there, and if you know, I would have the treatments Monday to Friday, bang, 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 and then the weekend off. But if you missed, because of the holidays over Christmas, one of those days you'd end up with a double day. So I'd go in the morning, have my radiation treatment, and then go back in again about 4 o'clock for another radiation treatment. Brilliantly, Sarah, every single one of these afternoons, drove me in the afternoon. And for all the other times, I drove in myself, which wasn't a big deal. But on those double days, Sarah always drove me in. I don't think I really needed to her, but it was fantastic that she supported me that way. But the day after your double day, you feel extra sort of sick, definitely not wanting to eat food, and my throat and mouth steadily and sort of neck steadily started to feel sorer in the last 10 days of the treatment. But came the last day, it psychologically it was a nightmare because of the food. That was the worst aspect of radiation treatment for me, was losing my sense of taste, and that sort of psychological battle of trying to eat something every single meal. I can't remember if I've gone through this, but the week after my operation I lost 10 pounds. Put it all back on again before the radiation treatment started, and then over that period between November the 14th and January the 6th, with my last treatment, I lost that 10 pounds again. I didn't think that was too bad, actually, so that was good. So there we go, treatment over. All downhill after that. Unfortunately, no. 5 days after the treatment ended, well, just before the treatment ended, my neck started to feel a lot worse, but the nurses were really happy with it, and I had a few sort of red spots that they were the sore than everywhere else, but the nurses were still, well, you've done really well, Mr. Farley, there, great. But 5 days after, literally all the skin from there to there just sloughed off, peeled off basically, so it's just raw all across there. As you can see in the photograph there, it was extremely sore, and it was like that for another 10 days, just really painful. And then really quickly I started to regain my taste, but then I started to get loads of sores in my neck and in my mouth. So it was literally like everything was pent up in the radiation treatment, and then straight away after, maybe my body relaxed or something like that. I had all this skin come off, all these sores in my mouth and on my tongue and in my throat. Really, that was psychologically a kick in the sort of teeth. Really, you think you got it over it all, and then suddenly this comes. So that was a bit of a nightmare. But the neck is healed up quite nicely now. The scar is there. It's tender. What has happened since then is because your lymph glands are not there to sort of filter stuff now, apparently liquid can sort of gather around your neck, and it feels a lot thicker around there. So that's not particularly nice. And and also I've lost, my hair has stopped growing from round the back of my head all around the throat there, and it had gone up to there, but I can feel hair actually starting to grow a bit back down again now. So, but all of there is sort of bare, so I don't shave there or anything like that, all around to that area. So that's another side effect of the radiation. Another thing that I haven't said yet is a couple of the side effects. So that's one, you lose hair around where it happened and the skin comes off. Another thing inside your mouth as well is your ability to produce the saliva, apparently, that you would normally produce. You lose that ability, and you get a lot of what is called dry mouth, and your sort of saliva feels thick, and they recommend that you gargle with this sort of salt, and I can't remember the other sort of stuff, water solution. You just gargle it 5, 6, 10 times a day, and even now post the radiation to continue doing that, which I have. The dry mouth hasn't felt as bad for me, but it obviously has happened because I've had two, and because of that, you're not producing the saliva. You are subjected to tooth decay a lot worse. So you have to make sure that you're brushing your teeth all the time and after your food, etc. But I had 2 fillings needed in my mouth, and that was really painful because it coincided with my dentist being off for a couple of weeks. So I had to have 2 weeks with a painful tooth, which was a bit of a nightmare. So that was another of the side effects of a couple of fillings I had to have, and then also my throat developed a really sore throat a month after the radiation stopped. So I felt my sense of taste has gone back really quickly. Fortunately, you know, within, what are we now, March, with start of April, my taste, I would say, just about 100% back. But it's very difficult for me to chew. My mouth is gets tired quite quickly, and I've still got a recurring sore that comes sort of round there, which makes it a bit of a nightmare to chew, and my sore throat makes it really sore to swallow. That's getting better, but the oncologist reckons it's because I sort of went back a bit too soon eating some nice stuff and fired in a couple of curries. So that has knocked me back a bit. But all in all, it's been a tricky 8 months, obviously. The medical staff all the way through, you know, at the Halifax, the hospital, the QE2 have been absolutely superb, you know, fantastic surgeon, the nurses, brilliant, everything, the radiation nurses were fantastically supportive all the way through. It's been difficult. Mrs. F has been fantastic. You know, shock to start with, obviously. Get over it. You know, there's a good chance of you recovering if you get this. You've got to be positive. The operation is post-operation is hideous for a week, and it will be hideous, but it does quickly go away if you look after yourself. Got to get that food inside you, the fuel to help your body to recover. You've got to try and rest, and you know, and then the radiation comes. If you're having radiation, you know, it's not nice. You just got to, you know. Fortunately, I've spent 26 years in the Royal Navy, had some good times, had some hideous times, and my brain has the ability to sort of just get my head down and push through, because you know that if you push through, there's going to be an end to it. And there is. You know, I'm not 100% back, but I'm out running now. I'm out training. I'm out in the garden, getting ready for a brand new spring. Looking forward to all the flowers and all the things that are going to pop up now. And that is that thing that you got to have in your mind when the dark days are there, when the pain is there, and you feel, am I going to get through this? You will get through it. You've got to be positive, trust in the doctors, and job will be a good one. I hope this has helped you guys. Any of you guys that are starting on this not very nice journey. It's not nice, but it's not the worst thing in the world. The worst thing in the world is you dying. You'll get out the end of it, and hopefully this has been helpful to you. Anyone watching this wants to ask me any questions, feel free to message me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I'd like to give any help to anyone that's going through this process, and just know that there is an end. See you later.